All right, welcome back. Well, Mr. Okoye did suggest, as though he knew where we were heading next, about young people, what they think of all the policies that have been put in place, at least the recent ones, to address some of the concerns that have been raised. What steps should they take moving forward? We have several joining us this morning. Okay, well, yeah, we'll start with that from Abuja. We've got Umar Hassan, who is the president, Yoruba Council of Youths Worldwide, as you see from Abuja studio. We also have Khalid Khan, who is the coordinator, Coalition of Kano Youths, and also Movement for SARS Reformation. Then we've got Ifeanyi Okoye, who is the president, Youths for Change Initiative, joining us in Lagos. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you all for joining us today on the program. Well, as you all may have seen and heard, having seen the protests about police brutality, after which SARS was, scrapped, and then you've got SWAT, the presidency have taken some steps, announcing those measures to ensure that they attend to some of the issues that have been raised by those protesters, and the country not only has recently responded, and the responses keep going on. The Ministry of Youth was seen the other day defending budgets in the National Assembly, where they did ask him to include some of those things in the budget. So we'll get perspectives of these gentlemen who have joined us. Let's start from Abuja. Umar Hassan, well, in context of all that you have seen and heard, what impressions do you have about the steps being taken to address those issues raised?
Well, one must admit that the country is really at a crossroad of quagmire in terms of where we are at the moment, because in view of the NSAS protest and the aftermath, one will admit that there have not been that constructive engagement via dialogue. It's mere oversight from the presidency addressing without any table of discourse with the Nigerian youth. And that on its own is a missing link. There is a missing link of governance. And that is why the demand and echo for good governance was brought on board during the NSAS struggle. And till date is still an issue that we, on our own part, have been able to come up with some solutions in view of the fact that if the government does not have any direct nexus with the youth, there's a need for a regulatory agency from the government, because we've seen that most of the ministries of government and ministers or commissioners, even at state level, does not even understand what the pains of youth are, or Nigerian youth are. And that's why we propose to the government that there is a need to come up with the National Youth Development Commission. In view of the NSAS struggle itself, there is also a need to really bring together what is called the Police and Youth Relations Committee, because we believe that there is no monitoring, there is no evaluation, there is no connect between the Nigerian police and the youth sector of society, in as much as between the government and the youth as well. So in bridging the gap, there's a need for us to begin that constructive engagement. And at the moment, after about 3 weeks on now, the kind of emergency that it requires to attend to the demands of the NSAS is yet to be seen. So what we are trying to hold on to now is that for the fact that the government is yielding by answering to the call of reviews and SWAT from NSAS to SWAT and police reformation, these are mere governance responsibility. This is their duty. This is their constitutional duty. We're only trying to call their attention to it. But what we need more is that in as much as the damages, we condemn the aftermath, the crisis that brewed aftermath of the NSAS. But in as much it's more of a lesson for us to learn that the kind of engagement that we need now is from the down, from the local government to the state level, to the regional, to the national. And these are issues that have always been raised at the confab and every other dialogue that we've expressed as far as the nation is concerned. But the implementation have not been seen. If only confab report was given an attention by this present administration, maybe by not dumping it on the archives, Nigeria would have moved from where we are during the last administration of the Jonathan era to another level. It is just for us to grow our democracy. So it is very important to call government attention that there is a need for us to discuss the constitutionality of our nation. And to getting involved in this, the law and the review system must also be all encompassing. So
Mr. Hassan,
reality
just a moment.
Is that the
just
government
Mr. Hassan.
is yet to...
Right. Let's get Mr. Khalid Khan's opinion on this. We'll come back to some of the recommendations you're putting up, but just so we can widen this conversation, Mr. Khalid Khan joins us from our Kano studio this morning. Now, Mr. Hassan says so far there hasn't been enough dialogue. And I recall that during the protests, you had this opinion that there were some ulterior motives to the protest. And it would seem as though across the country, youths seem to have divergent opinions. You have seen the way the government has handled this to response. You've seen the panel of inquiries. And you've seen what the youths are saying still. We've seen some people still saying, well, we're not satisfied. So putting all this together, what do you make of all this?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. I would like to start by complimenting the gallant effort of Nigerian youth in particular for voicing their genuine concerns for a better policing orientation in Nigeria. So, as you know, our opinion is to reform the SARS, not to end it. This is because we have constituted or we form a committee before we hold on to such opinion for supporting SWAT campaign. The reason is that, you know, before conducting any form of protest, you need to maybe engage yourself into an in-depth analysis and scrutinizing on what you are going to pursue on. If that is the case, that's why we say ending SARS is not the solution, but reforming SARS is the solution. This is simply because if you say we should end the SARS in the country without looking at the problem that is bedeviling the other regions of the country, such as Northeast, Northwest, and North Central, it means all the banditry, the kidnapping, the insurgencies that we are witnessing in northern part of this country, if we are not intensifying the security agencies, so it means we cannot solve the problem. That's why we hold on to that opinion. And again, all the violence that occurred during NSAS process, we have foreseen it coming, because the protest is being supported by some unidentifiable personalities that have hijacked the processes. That's why we say we won't engage into that NSAS protest, but we are going to support the SWAT. That's our opinion. And
all right,
again,
Mr. Khalid.
to the,
Yeah, just to put this in, maybe before you make your next point, if that's where you're going, you might as well just respond to it additionally. But at the moment, doesn't it appear as though you're crying over spilt milk? Because SARS has since been scrapped. Now we've got SWAT, and then we are talking about moving forward. So let's see. Okay, well, so at the moment, SARS is history. So shouldn't we be dwelling on steps that are being taken to move forward now?
Yes, exactly. We are calling on government to work fervently towards fulfilling all the demands of the SARS campaigners, of the End SARS campaign, because without fulfilling their promises, definitely there might be a second wave of the SARS protest on the streets of Nigerians, which is not which is quite unfortunate. We don't want that to happen again in the country. So we are calling on federal government to engage those that are saying SARS should be ended, to be to participate in such kind of committees in order to bring them on board, to feel sense of belonging in solving such kind of problems. And again, federal government should provide employment to Nigerian youth. And also, the problem of ASU strike have contributed immensely towards making EndSARS protest to be more successful, because as it is, an idle mind is a devil workshop. Students are not doing anything at home, so that's why they join the protest for the whole day. But had it been they are in in school, definitely, even if you are optimistic or you have the enthusiasm of participating into such kind of protest, it should be in an intermittent pattern, because you can't spend all the 24 hours. So we are calling the federal government to solve all the problems that might cause such kind of things to happen again in the country.
Well, Mr. Ifeanyi Okoye also joins us in this conversation this morning. He's president of Youths for Change Initiative. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Okoye. Yeah, well, a number of things that you have heard so far. There is the for, there is the against, and all coming from the same youths. It perhaps also raises that question a number of people have raised, which is the fact that maybe the youths themselves are not as united as they appear to have been during the protests.
Yeah, thank you very much. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, ever since 1960, I felt very happy, believing that definitely this is the change we asked for. Because over time, some people said the EndSARS has a political undertone or religious or ethnicity, but that isn't true. It was as a result of, though we called for EndSARS, but it was as a result of pent-up anger in the system that has failed the youth to provide the basic necessities. And most people believed that the EndSARS protest is not necessary, that we should call for reformation of SARS. But I can tell you that same reformation took place to 2017, 2018, 2019, and this is 2020 again. So the scrapping of SARS and bringing of SWAT is a welcome development. But in as much as we have SWAT now, we should not end there, because they need retraining, they need to be accountable to the people, they need to be engaged, because SARS is just an acronym of, I don't want to use the word failed leadership, or because some people don't want to hear that, but that is the truth. Because the last speaker said government should create jobs for people. Government can't create jobs. What we need is a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. Because a lot of young people are frustrated with the system. You imagine somebody out of school, no job, at the end of the day, you call them hoodlums. I believe we are still far from making a point. Because the government, as it stands now, though I commend them for setting up panels in each state, but how transparent are those panels? Those are questions we ask ourselves.
There are youth representatives on those panels.
Even though they are youth representatives, it is not enough for we to believe that there is transparency. Because some of the panel, the allegations coming up from different quarters, that even some panel you get 2 or 3 people of police brutality. Where are the others? As against the protests, what we heard before the protest? Is it that they are afraid to come up?
Well, I recall that the NHRC panel said they got about 150 petitions. I mean, that's more than 2 or 3, don't you think?
You are very right, but how many has showed up? That is the question. Because recently, some people call the panel in Lagos a palliative panel.
How do you mean?
They have been economical with the truth or fact before it.
All right. Okay, well, Mr. Hassan, I recall that earlier you talked about dialogue, and for a lot of people, and I'm sure you've probably followed this conversation, a lot of people were asking, so who do we dialogue with? Who's the leader in court? That has been a bone of contention. So who should represent the youth? Now, this is for Mr. Hassan in our Abuja studio, pardon me. And that has been a major bone of contention. So when you say there hasn't been enough dialogue, and don't forget, even on the panels of inquiries, you have some form of representation. So when you say dialogue, what kind of dialogue do you mean? What more dialogue should take place? Who should represent the youth? Should we still go with the we don't have any leadership, mantra, or try to get representatives to dialogue on behalf of the youths?
Yes, the needful that we are requesting is that a national youth dialogue summit is most imminent at this point in time. If you're now looking at the structure of youth, we are leaders of regional conclaves. We also have student leadership. We have various youth organization leadership. It's very important. Government can devise a method of just involving at least 10 youth per region to represent the various sector of their various states, from the religious point, from the youth, from the ethnic point, from the student point. We have leadership. So in aggregating all this, there is no gainsay because of the way and manner some of the protesters, which we all acknowledge then, claiming no leadership. We faulted that opinion because there was leadership amongst them, maybe during the entire process, in managing the crisis and the protest itself. But in view of that, that is one of the losses of the NSAS struggle. As far as we are concerned, we are pushing to the government. We are leaders. Definitely government can call on our views. We have already proposed to the government that, okay, it's high time the government come up with a national youth right bill. We cannot continue to discuss policies without having legislative backing. At least you mentioned maybe during your conversation that Mr. President should not travel for medical trips without legislative backing. Nigeria cannot continue to run on cosmetic policy plan. It's high time that they engage. Now that we are there, I'm the Secretary General of Nigerian Ethnic Nationalities Youth Leaders Forum, also the chairman of the Coalition of Southern Group. We have the Coalition of Northern Group. These are groups that have been existence in view of what the nation is passing through. So what we actually want is that these engagements will lead us into discussing our constitutionalism as a nation. We cannot continue to believe that the way the demand for police reformation will end with the formation of SWAT. No, it's not just specializing a unit in the entire policing system. But if we go further in ensuring that we have state policing system, whereby the funding, regulatory, and administration of our policing structure will be properly administered. So therefore, there will always be that constructive engagement between the community and the police, so that what we are currently passing through, we ought to be have left this position many years back. But in as much as we are here to tell ourselves the truth, and also in view of the panels, there is also a need for access to justice. It is very important that these panels are just in one location per state. There is a need for us to spread that panel concurrently in all the 774 local governments. So therefore, there are immediate issues within every locality. We are talking about police brutality. It's not just police brutality. We have to also look at men in uniform. All these are issues. Even beyond that, there are other issues
Just one moment, Mr. Hassan. Those issues that you have raised are valid. But just one moment, because we need to begin to wind down now. Mr. Sanusi Kani, let me ask you, there are a number of things that you raised as well that we can't explore all here. But there is something that is clear from the conversations that we have had so far. There are so many youth groups spread all over the 36 states and several local government areas in Nigeria. By way of solution, some people feel that maybe it's about time the youth groups began to form coalitions so that they can have one voice, part of the solutions that some people have recommended. What do you think of that?
Okay, so this is a very good, important initiative, I think, because, you know, we do have National Youth Council of Nigeria, NYCN. It's a registered organization with the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport Development. And also, we have a registered youth organization, Nigerian Youth Parliament. They are also, like, maybe discussing and voicing out the youth opinion all over the country. And all these organizations, ranging from NYCN to Nigerian Youth Parliament, they do have an organogram from national state to state level to senatorial district and also to local government level. If local government level will work hand in hand with National Youth Council of Nigeria and the Nigerian Youth Parliament at local government level in making decision of youth and other things, and also at the state level, if the Ministry of Youth of each and every state will work hand in hand with Nigerian Youth Parliament and National Youth Council, I believe they will be solving numerous problems for the benefit of youth and the entire general public. And also at national level,
just one moment, because we really need to begin to wind down now. But well, that opinion is valuable. Let me take it to Mr. Okoye now. Well, so that is that, you know, suggestion on the one hand, the NYCM and the rest of them. But so many youths say they're not even aware that there is such a thing as National Youth Council Movement of Nigeria. And as a part of a solution, bringing this all up to a head, when and how do you think youths can begin to be heard and taken seriously?
I think at this point in time, the youth need to form a synergy and a quorum. Like Khalid said, from your local level, which is the local government, to the state, the senatorial, and the federal level, because there is need for more organization and synergy by young people in their demand or in their quest for good governance or whatever we decide to go about. Because by just antagonizing without a proper structure or organization, I think the purpose or the main goal will be defeated.
Well, there are so many number of other things to look at as far as this is concerned, but we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take your final comments, and then we'll be calling it today. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Oladotun Hassan, our guest in Abuja. Well, a number of things that have been raised by all of you, and you all seem to agree on the youth coming together. The question is how?
Well, the issue is we have to come together now. And the essence of this, that's why we are proposing to the government that the government needs to really raise the bar beyond the cosmetic projections of what they want to give to the youth with the end power and all this without any accessible measure. But there is also a need that the table should be a national youth dialogue, constructive engagement. It's going to take us 5 to 2 weeks or maybe 7 days to 14 days to addressing issues. Then we come up with a communique at the end of these issues that will go to addressing our economic problem, our political instability, our social life, the corruption in the system.
My attention, Mr. Hassan. Just one moment. You said that the responsibility. Just one moment. you said that for the youths to come together, it has to go to the government. Is it the government that is going to bring the youths together? Just asking.
No. On our own, we are working at that level to calling ourselves together. But in view of the state that we are in, there's a need for a government regulatory agency, and that's why we are calling for a National Youth Development Commission. We cannot continue to work on cosmetic programs from government. Once we have a regulatory agency that administer and regulate, at the end of the day, in view of the fact that we have ethnic groupings, we have National Youth Council of Nigeria, we have Nigerian Youth Organization, we have the Khan, we have the Muslim Association, all these are representation. If we come together at once to discuss our national issues beyond us being on the street, we cannot always address our issues via protest. Yes, we've done protests. There is a limit to everything. Let us now come to the table on our own. From the Yoruba Council of Youth, we are already working on a date, and that is 18th of December, to call for a dialogue here in the capital city. We are already working towards that, creating that table already, because if we keep waiting for government to come and give us a directive, we will not get there. So I was at a conference yesterday, even where the Council of Traditional Affairs are also meeting. We've given them our own proposals to. All these have been communicated to various interests. But
right, Mr.
we
Hassan,
want to inform the government through this means that, in view of the program the government is coming up with at the moment, let them come up with something meaningful. Yes, the government has proposed 75 billion naira intervention fund. It's not enough. If Lagos State governor needs 1 trillion naira to repair the damages, how much trillion do we need to now repair the lives of our youth? 6 trillion naira is not enough regionally to create constructive economic zones.
Yeah, it is expected that in rebuilding Lagos, for example, Mr. Hassan, if you can hear me, it is expected that in rebuilding Lagos with that amount, of course, it should create jobs that youths can get employed in, and of course, that should help to an extent. But of course, that point is taken. Let's go to Kano. Mr. Kani, it's hard to separate young people and social media. In fact, some of them see social media as the venue, the table to voice their opinions. And just recently, you must have heard about that resolution from the Northern Governors Forum meeting, which called for censorship and strong control of social media, just to put it in those terms. It's been quite a tricky term, a tricky path to follow. But regarding social media, young people, and this call to maybe censor, control social media, do you think that's the right move forward?
Yes, exactly. It is a right movement, but you know, if it is sincerely and purely come up. You know, we youth, we are using social media to voice out our grievances and opinion to those that are holding political offices. But you know, if they are going to come up with any legislation that will jeopardize the rights of patriotic Nigerians from voicing out their grievances on social media, this is totally condemnable opinion, because they are trying to cripple the democracy that our founding fathers have built for a long period of time in the country. Our opinion is that censoring or maybe censorship of maybe social media is very important with the rise of fake news that we are witnessing today. But if they are going to politicize the system, that is the point of correction, and that is where we are going to reject the bill vehemently without supporting them. That is our opinion.
Okay. Well, Mr. Okoye, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, he says that if it will be politicized, then it's a no-go area. But the question is, how do you follow that process to ensure that the I's are dotted appropriately, the T's are crossed appropriately, such that the young people have access to free speech?
Well, I don't know more on the issue. It will be a difficult one, censoring the social media, because the Nigerian government as a whole, on the present government as at today, rode on the back of the social media as at 2015 to come to power. So in entirety, I condemn both the censoring and the regulation of the social media. This is not what we need at this time, because we should be talking of making the youth more engaged. The social media has been a parliament where issues are discussed that borders the youth. Are you trying to censor or regulate the social media, creating a kind of curfew on the social media space? I listened and I watched a present minister who stated clearly that the young people have taken to the social media, that the trend on social media is becoming worrisome, that they want a situation where they can switch off, even though it's a day, switch off the social media, forgetting that most young people have found solace in terms of creating employment, in terms of using it positively. When the news does not favor a particular group of people or the government, they call it fake news. But if it's in their favor, they call it, they see it as norms. Beyond the regulation or censorship of social media, I believe it has a political undertone. We should look beyond this. For a whole 19 northern state governor converging in Kaduna, Arewa House, and their point of discussion was just the social media, they didn't talk of the insecurity or empowering their people positively.
Actually, there actually is fake news. So
no, I didn't say there is no fake news. I didn't say there is no fake news.
Yeah, but the northern leaders also spoke about other matters other than social media. So they spoke about several things. They rejected and condemned the subversive actions of the NSAS protest. They called on traditional rulers who they expect to be given formal roles in governance architecture of the country. They also commended the National Assembly for trying to do something about that. So there were several other issues, but we do get your point. So in conclusion, as we wind down on this one, Mr. Hassan, just briefly, as brief as possible, what is your own perspective on the social media question?
Well, I believe there is a need for regulatory standard in any society to thrive. Even if it is not useful to us now, it will be useful to our generation, our own children's generation. There is a need to really look at the cyber law in view of the fact that a lot is going on. We have what is called sedition in law. We have what is statement that could really trigger crisis, needed to be cautioned and needed to be curtailed. If there is no limitation to for us to have regulatory laws and standards, it will become our own albatross in the future. So, in view of the fact that I will commend my brother in Kano, that accept the fact that if it is not to be politicized or to weaken our voices or weaken our pride as Nigerian youth, definitely we will all encourage the regulation, or not specifically gagging us with view, or maybe gagging our views, but let there be a truth base from government. Let the government be sincere from its own stable. Whatever government is promising, let it be seen to the latter. So we are encouraging, Mr. President, that there is a need for more engagement from his desks. In as much as he has been addressing us in the recent time, if he has been doing this almost every time without no date.
All right, Mr. Hassan.
We would have understand more. So we are encouraging that we discuss more in terms of re-engaging ourselves, and also to look at the social media. Though it's our platform as youth, is everybody platform.
Okay, we hear you. Oladotu Hassan.
Everybody
all right, then, Oladotu Hassan, Khalid, Sanusi, Kani, and Ifeanyi Okoye. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today on the program.